All right, what's going on, my people? I'm sorry, it might be a little bit noisy, but it's 90 degrees where I am, and uh, I gotta have the AC going. Gotta have the AC going. So I was doing some homework because I was just curious. I was like, as I've been doing research and seeing that test scores have been failing, and as far as urban areas, and a lot of black and brown kids have been struggling, and specifically Democrat-run cities. And I'm a person that was taught by my ancestors. My ancestors taught me that it's by any means necessary. By any means necessary means that you can't keep doing the same thing and thinking that that's the only thing that's necessary for change. By any means necessary. That doesn't mean that voting is the only way for change. That doesn't mean that protesting is the only way.
Based on how many kids read at grade level, looking at third grade reading data, determine how many prison beds they're going to need to build. So currently, about 2 in 10 of our black and brown students are reading at grade level across the city of Oakland, and it's about 1 in 10 in math. So it makes me so nervous because I think, what are all the careers out there? How are you successful in college or a career if you can't bring your proficiency up to grade level? When I go to a board meeting, it is so rare that you actually hear, how are students doing? Pro-immigrant, they're embracing, they want everyone to succeed, but our actions as leaders need to line up to that. And when we are leaving 80% of our black and brown students behind and out of reading at grade level, those actions don't match up with the words.
Is it the different schools?
There's a lot of correlation. If you put our proficiency, one thing that we did to really motivate the parents was show them, if you map out the schools in the city, just geographically on a map, you can see more of almost all the schools that are green schools where there's a lot of proficiency. They're in the higher income.
Some of the grades that kids are getting, they cannot be trusted. Is that common in the school system now?
This is a national issue right now that's really being flagged in the national media. Parents across our country overestimate how well their kids are doing in school. This tells us something is broken within our education system in the way that we're communicating with parents. We can have kids be straight A students, complete their A through G requirements. They get to college and all of their classes are remedial because when they take the college placement tests, they are not at a college level. So this is happening constantly. And it's actually one of the reasons that first generation kids, low income kids of color who get to college don't stay in college because it's so detrimental, embarrassing, shameful. I felt that when I got to college and I couldn't do the work. It's such an assault kind of on your self-esteem when you get there and you can't even write an essay that is a passing essay in your English class, right, at a college level. So we have this huge disconnect between these grades that are getting sent home and the actual proficiency level. To actually share the data for black and brown students that just about under 50% were eligible to apply to a college. And kids, their minds were blown. They said, we had no idea. How come nobody told us this? I got to go talk to my cousin who goes to this other school where they have really low A through G rates. I got to tell him and make sure he's getting into the right classes so that he won't be left out of being able to apply to college. Absolutely. I remember a student with really severe disabilities who came into our school in kindergarten. His doctor said, look, he's just really not going to be able to learn very much. We're just going to integrate him so he can have a good experience in school. We partnered as a team. We worked so closely with that family as we worked with the medical staff that he had. That kid soared. He was reading on grade level by first grade. He astounded everybody. And, that was a case where we know we can make a difference. A report shows if schools in Oakland continue improving at the rate that they're improving at, it's going to take 4 generations for kids to be at grade level. A report shows If schools in Oakland continue improving at the rate that they're improving at, it's going to take 4 generations for kids to be at grade level.
And now, in terms of the funding,
Sure.
I've always been puzzled because the funding amount we are spending in California is almost $23,000, a little bit more than $23,000 per kid per year, which used to be $10,000
Right.
like 10 years ago or 12 years ago per kid per year.
Yeah.
So we have invested a lot more in the public education. What's going on with the funding?
Yeah.
Where does it go?
Part of what California is doing right now is really embracing a community schools model where it's not just the academic needs that are attended to in the school, right? There's social emotional supports, there's mental health supports, there's even health clinics in our schools. There's a great new model of linked learning where kids are getting career internships when they're in high school, they're doing work-based learning.
While we're having the issue with proficiency,
Correct.
while we're not doing the basics.
Correct. But in schools where we have very few students and we choose to keep those schools open, they're not able to provide a robust program. It's kind of like the bare bones, the skeleton. And we end up supplementing, right, from the general fund to keep those schools open. This is at a huge cost to our kids. When every year that we have schools where kids are, where the vast majority, 80-90% of the kids are not reading at grade level, 50% of the kids aren't reading at grade level, there's such a cost that's borne by every student in that school and every family in that school. What we're saying is we probably need a different structure for our schools, to not have all these tiny, tiny schools that are just barely kind of getting the doors open every day and not having the kind of robust supports and programs that really make a school vibrant and successful.
And the messaging is about how the schools are going to help the low-income families and Black and brown kids. Is it just talk? Is it not really happening?
There's a fundamental tension and disconnect where I hear so many of these progressive values stated all the time about how people are, pro-Black, pro-immigrant, they're embracing, they want everyone to succeed, but our actions as leaders need to line up to that. And when we are leaving 80% of our Black and brown students behind and out of reading at grade level, those actions don't match up with the words. We have
to change that, by any means necessary, by all means necessary. But we've been stuck in a fixated or fixed area of time. We've glamorized the civil rights movement so much to where instead of expanding their ideas and the paradigms, we've actually just mimicked everything that they did, regardless if some of the things they did were successful or unsuccessful. But instead of actually figuring out economically and politically what's good for Black people, we just think if we do the same actions as some of our ancestors, if we simply just march and publicly defy that is somehow making us equal to the civil rights leaders, but it doesn't. And a lot of that, for me, the civil rights had good intentions, but we just needed America to enforce its laws. We just needed them to enforce the laws that were on the books. And we never should have had to need a special set of rules because we're American. We didn't need a separate set of civil rights because we're American. We're entitled to the same rights as everybody else, and we didn't need a special subsection of rights to make us feel that way. We just needed to be treated like citizens and Americans. That's what we needed. That's exactly what we needed because, the sad part is there were more businesses. Some things just don't make sense. We had more land when we had, when quote unquote civil rights didn't exist. People took more civil actions. People were more civil, not like how you act, but people would go to court, would sue, would not just, for BS, but if you did something wrong or after slavery, Black people were very litigious. because a lot of black people were barred for reading. The black people that could read were pretty much masters at law, math. So I was a generation of black people that were extremely intelligent. It's a generation of lost black inventors. But let's get to the Chicago thing. I said in the beginning of the title, Chicago spends, I want to say, about 10 times the amount of money on undocumented migrants as compared to what they do in after-school programs. And the reason I specifically did after-school programs is because Chicago has a violence problem. And if you're not finding or having positive things for these young men and women to do, or actually putting money into their education, then you're not really addressing the problems in Chicago. So I found it very